I didn't see you there. Well, since you're here, why don't I tell you about my life as a colonist? To start off, my name is Margaret. I'm 13 years old, and I live in Savannah, Georgia with my mama, my daddy, and my little sister, Ruth. My family is considered middle class. My daddy is a plantation owner, and he grows mostly cotton and tobacco. And most of our money comes from the tobacco because it's considered a cash crop. And we have a bit of land, but not as much as my grandparents, because they're considered upper class, which is basically the rich of the rich. And they have a lot of land and tons of slaves to do all their chores for them. We have a few slaves, but not as many as they do. But the slaves that we do have, Daddy treats them really fair. He's very kind to them, and he's never hurt them. But our neighbor, Mr. Wilson, however, does not have the same views. He thinks that slaves are just property, that they're just disposable. But Daddy doesn't. Daddy thinks they're real people. He sees them as real people that should have rights and should be free. But the only reason I think he has slaves is because he thinks they are probably safer with him. Because if they were in any other house, they would probably be mistreated. They would probably not be taken good care of. But yeah. I love to read and write. And I love to learn new things. And one of the main reasons for that is because when I'm older, I want to fight for women's right to vote, and I also want to be an abolitionist, which is basically when you want to help free all the slaves. You want to make slaves real citizens. You want to make them real people. And so that's what I want to be when I'm older. But I really want to fight for women's rights to vote because I think they should be able to vote. But Daddy doesn't like that idea. He thinks that women should only concern themselves with cooking and cleaning and taking care of the children. That was the one thing that I never understood about him. As I said before, I love reading and I love writing. I love writing letters to my Aunt Cora, but she lives up in New Hampshire, and sometimes letters can take a really long time to get there. And her letters can take a really long time to get back to me. So can't write to her very often, and I can't write letters to any of my cousins because none of them can read. But I've sent letters to them before, just drawing pictures and stuff, but they can't read any of the words that I write. I feel really bad for the slave girls and boys that are my age. Can't imagine living the way they do. Let's see, what else can I tell you about? I can tell you about the chores that we do, because, like I said before, we have a few slaves, but me and Mama still have chores that we can do. Some of the chores we do are things like we make the beds in the morning, we take care of my little sister Ruth, I have to do my schoolwork, and Mama milks the cows, and I clip the sheep when it's time for them to be clipped, and we feed the chickens and take care of all the animals that we have. Mama and I cook sometimes, but one of our slave girls, Alice, she's a really good cook, and she likes to cook, so we let her cook a lot, and her cooking is really good. And sometimes when Mama and I are done with our chores, we go and we help the slaves so they don't have to work as hard. What else is interesting about my life? I could tell you about the Sabbath, what we do on church days. That's the only day that the slaves get to rest. And we have to leave really early in the morning for church because we're not allowed to use the horses on Sundays because, well, that would be them working, and Sunday is the day of rest. So it takes us about an hour to walk to church in the mornings. But after church, when we get home, We hold personal services, just praying and singing our own songs and things of that nature. And after that, we hold a service for the slaves. I only wish they could come to church with us, but they're not allowed to come into the churches. A few years ago, there was something Mama called the Great Awakening, which was basically when Christians were trying to spread the gospel as far as they could. They were trying to see how many people they could convert to Christians. And a lot of people were angry about that, but I don't really understand why. When we tried to go to church after that, or during it even, there were so many people in the churches that we had to have our own personal church services for a long time because there were too many people. We couldn't find a place to stand. But after, when we did eventually go back to church, when things kind of calmed down a little bit and we did eventually go back to church, it just seemed like the town was happier. It seemed people were friendlier. People were more inclined to help other people. They were the town just in general felt lighter. There were people helping rebuild the buildings and the rundown houses. There were people helping the less fortunate, and I mean, even the flowers seemed to bloom brighter. It was a really good time for our town. But yeah, I think that's about all I can tell you right now. But summer is coming, and I have to finish my bonnet before the summer sun comes and burns my face. So, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something. But I'll see you next time. Bye.